And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to tonight's Live with Yana live stream. And tonight's topic is top tips for driving your career growth. So thank you for finding some time this evening to join our live discussion. So please make sure you introduce yourselves in the comments and let us know what you do and join our conversation with your comments and questions. So if you're new to my live show, I'm Yana Martins and I'm video confidence coach, and I help my clients to overcome camera phobia so they can connect with their professional community online through the power of the video. So tonight we are going to talk about top tips for driving your career growth, and Michael is going to share his valuable insights and real life experience when it comes to career progression, and he will cover different aspects of career growth and the challenges you might face along the way. You know, the world is changing, new opportunities are popping up, and I'm sure there are a few of you who have been thinking like, what's next? Which career direction should I choose? It's an incredibly relevant topic, so please make sure take and share it with your friends who need to hear this. And before I'll pass it to Michael to introduce himself, I just want to quickly remind you that we're going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So to watch replays, please subscribe to my channel. Or check my website, yanamartins.com. So I'm going live every second Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, with various experts from my network. And we're talking about all things personal branding, LinkedIn, career change, and job search. So we are going to answer all your questions from all the platforms. So please make sure you ask as many questions as you want. Obviously, stay on the topic. And the most active participants will also receive a nice surprise at the end of the stream. So guys, please introduce yourselves in the comments. Let us know what you do and where you're watching us from. And I'm passing on to the Michael to introduce himself. Michael, please.
Cool. Thank you, Yana. So I'm Michael. I'm an engineering manager at a company called Estimate One. We do software as a service for the construction industry. Been a developer for about 25 years. So I started an internet access provider way back in the mid-90s in the days of dial-up, and slowly progressed my way from CTO to the bottom of the barrel down as a junior developer and working my way back up again. So had a range of jobs, and recently made the decision to move into more management roles. So in the last 5 years or so. So I've been trying to shift the focus of my career and work my way up the chain on the people leadership side of things now.
Perfect. So, and obviously we're going to talk about career growth, and I hope you have a lot of personal stories to share with us as well.
I'm sure I've got more than enough to continue for a number of hours if we need it.
Yeah, we'll just, block the whole week for this conversation. Yeah. So Sandra is here. Thank you for saying hi, Sandra. Please, guys, make sure you say hi, okay? Don't be shy. We want to know who's here. And I guess our first question to us, to you guys as well, before we, go into the topic, have you set a long-term career goals? So, do you just go with the flow and just see, wherever next job will take you, or you have a really, planned, achievable long-term career goals that you're trying to pursue? So please share with us during the stream, and I'm going to obviously ask the same question. I'm going to ask Michael the same question. So Michael, let's start with the goal setting. So have you set a long-term career goals when you started? And do you think it's important to have a long-term goals, or we can just, sometimes just go with the flow and see where the career will take us?
Yeah, so when I started my career, I didn't have any sort of a goal. I just sort of went with the flow, flailed around. I think I worked in internet-related technologies. I worked with computer hardware. There was no real direction, and for probably 5 years or so, I didn't really have any sort of consistency in my career. After a little while, I realized that my key skills were around development, and so I focused on that. And for quite a while, I was there saying, I'm going to be a developer until the day I die at my desk. I was very passionate about it. I loved it. I enjoyed it. Then, as I mentioned, about 5 years ago, I decided, hang on, these people are kind of interesting. I want to get to know more about that side of the industry, and my interest in development waned a bit. And after I'd done a little bit of experimenting and learning, I ended up setting a long-term career goal. And the way I did that was I asked myself, what do I want to do the day before I retire? And I decided that end point would ideally be being the CTO of a software as a service organization with more than 500 developers reporting to me. Indirectly, of course. That's a bit of a moonshot. I'd still be really happy if I could get to CTO of an organization with, say, 50 developers reporting through to me. But I think it's important to have that moonshot there. So the last thing I want to do is reach my goal and go, what do I do for the next 10 years?
Yeah, and I guess it's quite often happens that we only planning for our next role instead of actually setting the goal. And it could be quite a doubting question, actually, asking yourself what job I want just before I retire. Because we're all dreaming to retire in 10 years anyway.
Yeah, I find it really interesting a lot of the time when I'm talking to people. I do about their career direction and their career growth. I ask the question, what's the job that you want to do on the day that you retire? And most people have no idea. And it's actually quite a hard idea to come up with. But once you've got it there, then it does sort of set that direction for your career, so you can make sure that all of your planning is heading in the right direction, and you're not doing what I did at the start of my career and just flailing around with no clue of where to go.
Sandra is saying, I set goals, but not long-term. As for me, my career hasn't been linear, quite messy in figuring out what I wanted to do. I set short-term goals aligned with my strength and see where it goes. Okay, so Michael, I think, like the the advice to Sandra from Michael would be, ask yourself, what position do you want to be when you retire? And sounds like a doubting question.
Yeah, and I think that's actually amazing for her to recognize that she is just sort of randomly floating around between roles. It's quite a challenge to work out that that's what's happening. And once you've realized it, you start to realize you maybe don't have that direction, and you don't have momentum taking you on a path. So it can be really beneficial to set that goal. And I guess once you've done the planning, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of these later, you've done the planning, you've decided that's the direction to go, you can actually start gaining momentum towards that end point, or towards that goal. If you progress past it, then that's excellent as well.
And I guess you're mentioning here as well on your slide that have a goal even if it's changed in the future. And I think it's really important to mention, because some people, it's scary sometimes to set long-term goals, because it might seem unachievable, but it also be like worried, but what if I won't like it in the future? What if I'll choose the wrong goal? But in reality, setting the long-term goals, it just help us to set the priorities and make everyday decisions easier, even if the long-term goal will change in the future.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, it's up until a few years ago, my goal was always going to be a developer until the day I die. Once I decided that I wanted to move into the people leadership side, I knew that would still be related to the IT industry, more specifically to the software as a service part of the IT industry. So even though I had gone in one particular path, I was able to take a sideways step in order to get into the people leadership side. So it wasn't a big direction shift. Over time, it may have quite a different endpoint to where I would have been otherwise, but at the time that I had to make the change, it was a very small change. And even now, I'm finding that the effective time on having made that small direction change has meant that I'm in quite a different place to where I would have been otherwise.
100%. And was it any particular point in your career that made you do so?
I think Yeah, there wasn't any particular event or anything. It was I started gaining an interest in people a bit more. So, and then I started going to meetups, and I learned a lot about myself in that process. And so it was a journey of self-realization. There were a number of changes in my personal life, a few work changes, becoming more involved in networking and the industry. And I learned a lot about myself, and I guess that's what influenced my direction change. Um, just getting a better understanding of what I actually wanted. I think in some ways, almost from the start of my career, IT was kind of a fallback career for me. My original thought at high school was, I'll go and do architecture. But thankfully, I failed year 12 maths, which precluded me from going to uni. So there goes that idea. And I haven't really looked back at it. Occasionally I go, yeah, that's what I wanted to do, but I couldn't imagine myself doing that now.
Sandra is asking, what's the definition of long term, Michael? I feel that some people think that in 10 years gaps, but I find this too long to plan for. So I think we pretty much, like need to jump in your planning strategy, Michael, because I know you have a particular career growth planning strategy. So please share with us. I guess it will answer Sandra's question as well.
Yeah, so I think the goal setting is really important, and the level of detail when you do that, especially if you're at the start of your career, you're looking at a 40 to 50 year goal. It's a pretty long time. It's pretty hard to comprehend, but it can be a very high level goal. So if I was setting my current goal, I've defined the size of the organization, the type of organization, but if I was setting my goal at the start of my career, it's probably, I want to be a CTO. That's enough detail. I don't need to go further into it. Then what I tend to do is, between now and then, it's a finite time. So if we take someone who's very early in their career, it might be a 40-year goal. Halve that amount of time and work out what's the point you need to in order to achieve. The point to achieve halfway through that time to keep you on track for your goal. So, and then again, you put a little bit more detail into that, but it doesn't have to be a lot. And then you halve that again. So if we've gone from 40 years to 20 years, we then do a 10-year goal. And again, still doesn't need much detail. A lot changes in 10 years, especially if you happen to be in IT. There's every chance that everything will change in that time period. And you keep halving it until you get to a value that's less than 5 years. And depending on industry, possibly even less than 3 years. And then that's where you provide a lot more detail. And that's very much, what is my next step? Now, you'll probably never find that perfect role for the next step. So you take whatever's fairly close to it. Your career trajectory is not going to be a straight line from where you are now to where you want to be. It'll have a few curves. You might have to take a step back at some point. You might change your goal and make sure there's a conscious step back. It might be that depending on, you might have kids, you might be a stay-at-home parent, and that pauses everything for a while, and then you have to ramp the speed up afterwards. Or it could be that the situation changes. I know a lot of people who worked in retail and hospitality and the like would have been severely impacted by COVID. And who knows what that's doing to their career, but they're probably going to have to replan things a bit and work out what their next step is, whether that be taking 2 or 3 or 4 steps back just to get their foot in the door of the industry again. So I think it's really important to have that plan, but also then to review it regularly. So every probably 6 to 12 months, I reassess, do I still want to have that end goal? Has that changed? But maybe every 6 months or so, I'll have a look at some of the waypoints and go, is that still correct relative to where I am? And anytime I get a new job, I'll also review the whole thing and go, okay, how has this impacted my plans? So yeah, very much make sure that we've got a good solid plan for the next step, but just an idea for the future ones.
Yeah, and I think it's simply even like writing down, your career goals is quite important, because it's quite interesting. You're thinking about particular goals at the moment, and a year later, you think about something completely different. But if you're not actually recording it, that's where this back and forward happens, and you actually never progress
Yes.
because you didn't put this planning in place. And I really like this simple approach about just basically calculating how many years. Ask yourself first what position you want to retire, from what position you want to retire, and then how many years you have till this position, and split it into, till you have these bites, small achievable goals that you can implement.
Yeah, definitely. It makes it so much easier. And I think part of it as well is then within that, how do I progress to the next step? Knowing what you need in order to achieve that next step. So I've got various things I want to improve at. I've used various goal setting frameworks to do that. So there's a lot of people would have heard of SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, attainable, and I can't remember all the rest because I don't have it in front of me. But there's also hard goals, which is another goal setting framework. And I find using a combination of them in the right places can really help with making sure that I achieve those next steps. Actually, I've written a blog article about that on my blog about when I use different goal setting frameworks. So yeah, and that was drawn from me planning out my career, planning what do I need in order to get to the next job. Can I achieve that? Can I achieve a promotion within my current job that will help me on my path, or should I start setting an expectation with my manager that in 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, whatever it happens to be, that I may not be there anymore because I want to take the next step and the company won't be ready for me to.
I'm going to mention it, but it could be, do you think it could be doubting for some people, sometimes communicating those goals with the managers? Because, if your manager know that in 12 months you want to move to another position, that might be not ideal situation for them. So how would you deal with that?
I guess having some management experience myself, I'm the sort of person, I'm very open and honest with those in my team. Especially in my last role, I openly said to the team, if you're ever thinking of leaving, can I be the first to know? And then that gives me time to find someone to come in for a nice handover to happen. And then I can use my network to go and help the person who's leaving to find a role that's right for them. I'd rather they be happy. I am aware there's a lot of managers that don't like that. And if you even mention the fact that you might leave one day, then they'll do whatever they can to keep you there, or they'll just shove you straight out the door. So make sure you really know your manager before you start talking about anything like that. But at the same time, you have to trust them a fair bit and know that if they are open to hearing about it first, you not only make your own life easier, you make their life easier because they can organise doing a proper handover. They've got the expectation, but they may also be aware of something that's going to happen in the near future. So you turn around to them and go, not really getting the satisfaction with this job level anymore. I want to take the next step up. And they might turn around and go, oh, well, the exec's planning on doing this in 3 months. Are you willing to wait it out? And we might be able to get you into that. And you can at least start that conversation. It's always easier to get a promotion than a new job.
Yeah. But I guess it's also easy to get a promotion when you set the right goals and you know where you're going.
Yes.
Because sometimes people take the promotion just because they get offered the promotion.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I've been really conscious of in talking to people. There was a real problem in the IT industry for quite a while where people would progress up to a senior developer or a tech lead or some role like that. And the only next step was for them to take on a people leadership position. But they weren't interested in that. They only wanted to do tech. So recently, the industry started changing. They've started recognizing there's a difference there. And I know companies like Estimate One, like Envato, like Square have all published their employee or their engineering growth frameworks. They're available. Just Google search them. There's plenty out there. And they have both a technical path and a leadership path. So it means that people can still keep getting promoted without having to move into people leadership. But a big part of what I saw in the older version of the industry before that happened was people getting promoted into a people leadership role that they didn't want, and therefore they never did well at it, and they never progressed any further. And that can be really disheartening. If you don't want that type of role, but it's the only way to get the pay rise, people will take it because some people prefer the money, and it's really hard to then step back to something that you enjoy. So
Yep.
know when to take the role, and also when to say no is just as important. If you get offered a promotion but it doesn't align with your long-term goal, or it doesn't align with your interests, it's okay to say no. Most people will respect it. There'll be a few that don't, but there always is. But by far the majority, if not 99%, will go, oh, that's cool. We'll help facilitate you in your current role and see if there's a way we can get you some more money to stay there.
Yep, definitely. And again, I think it's all coming back to this long-term job setting. Because if you do set your long-term goals, it will be easier for you to make a decision, because it could be quite a hard decision to say no to promotion. But if you have a bit of a clarity in terms of like where you want to be in 10 or 20 years, that's not a hard decision to make. So I guess we're coming back to the importance of setting the goal. So obviously it's not that easy in real life all the time.
Yeah, and there's also the challenge of, you may have set the goal of, I want to get to whatever level of people leadership. It could be, I want to be a senior engineering manager with 5 teams reporting to me, or it could be, I want to be CTO of a big multinational company. And you take that first step into team leadership, you go, I hate leading people. And then that's where it's okay to readjust all your goals and go, actually, I want to go on the technical leadership path. Be open and honest with your manager, talk to them, find out how you can move from the people onto the tech side of things, especially if you've only just made the step. It's a lot easier. And then progress down your new path with your new goals.
And I guess the question that a lot of people would ask, how often should you talk to your manager? How often should you ask for promotion? How often you should stay in the role before thinking to moving to another one?
Yeah, I think in terms of promotions, it's depending on the organization. If you need to ask for it, then you need to know that you're delivering the value, and you need to have also proven that to the organization. So before you go for that promotion, you need to start operating at the higher level. You can't go, oh, that's above my pay grade, because then they'll just go, oh, you're only capable of the job you're in, so you can stay there. So yeah, very much. If you want to start becoming a people manager, you need to start showing signs of leadership and taking other people on the journey with you. Same on the technical side of things. If you want to get into the technical leadership side of things, you need to really show that you're able to think ahead and plan for the future and present new ideas. So start operating at the higher level, and then once you've demonstrated that you're delivering value, then there's a good chance of going and asking for that promotion. Also be aware of when roles come up. Make sure that you make the right people aware that you want that role. There's no point going, oh, I really wanted that promotion, and your manager turns around and goes, well, if you had have told me, I would have put your name forward. Often they won't put your name forward unless you ask. So yeah, I think that on that side of things, there's not necessarily a minimum time. It's when you know you're delivering the value. It may be that you have specific cycles that the company works to, in which case try to coordinate it with that. It's probably a bit easier to get a promotion if there's a regular cycle of promotions than to try and get one 2 weeks after that's happened.
Yep.
And I think the other thing is making sure that your manager's really aware of where you're wanting to go, and they can give you feedback on what are the bits that you need to improve in order to get that promotion. And that can help even if you're looking at leaving the company for your next step. The manager will generally be happy to try and help you get that step up, with the hope that there's going to be a role at the company for you. And if by the time you actually get there is no role, then they'll generally take some pride and some fulfillment from having helped you on your path. And if you're lucky, they may even help you find the next role.
And I actually want to ask our audience as well. So, how frequently do you change jobs? How frequently do you change jobs, and maybe how frequently you wish you would change jobs? So, I guess would you say that now people changing job more and more often? Have you
Yeah,
noticed any trends, like I don't know, even in last 5 years?
I think it depends a little bit on industry. Some industries, I guess it also depends on goals. Some people and some industries, people set their goal, they get to it, and then they stay there for the remainder of their career, quite happy. They're content. Um, other industries have a really good chain of promotion, so you can stay with one company for quite a long time, and you may be changing jobs every 18 months, 2 years as you get promotions because you've developed the right skills. I think the IT industry especially is a little bit different to that, because especially in the smaller organizations, if you go and work for one of the big four banks, then they've got their nice hierarchy. You can work your way up in IT. If you go and work in the startup and scale up industry, you're going to job hop. I think I've seen in IT the average, I can't remember where I saw this graph, but there was an average where it peaked at around 18 months to 2 years, where that was where most people changed jobs. It then went down to almost zero, but there was another peak at about 8 to 10 years. So I think in IT, at least, you get kind of two lots of people: those that are somewhere between 18 months and 2 years in a job, and those that are in it for the long haul and basically wait for their long service leave before they leave. So in my case, it's probably about 18 months across my career. And I think in the past, that's cost me one or two opportunities where they're like, oh, you're a little bit flighty. But I'm also kind of the view, if you think I'm going to disappear, then that means you don't have the career growth that I want. So probably the wrong place anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess, what is your personal opinion? Do you think people who changing jobs more often actually drive their career growth quicker? Like, do they actually progress quicker when they're changing jobs? Or in IT, we're talking about IT because you in IT industry. So would you think that people who changing job more often usually progress quicker?
I think early in the career it can be detrimental because you're still trying to gain the depth of knowledge. So within IT there's a bit called the T-shaped skills. So it's basically you have a breadth of knowledge and you have really good knowledge on one thing, and that's the T-shape. So it's a fine balance. If you've got a job where you can get that breadth and start specializing in something, then that's going to be the most beneficial. I guess early in my career, part of the job hopping side of things was that I was getting that breadth of knowledge to find out what I wanted to specialize in. If I could have done that in one role, it would have been so much better. I probably could have found that, got the breadth and the depth at the same time. Instead, once I got the breadth, then I started specializing, and because I had the breadth, I was then growing more quickly than most of the companies I was working with. So I had to job hop in order to progress. And it doesn't really look that good when you've gone and had I don't know, 7 or 8 jobs in 10 years. People are like, oh, hang on, you move around a fair bit. But at the same time, I think that's become a lot more normalized now, especially with the IT industry and how rapidly things change. People are jumping around a lot more. So it's not as detrimental. But I think then again, there's sort of the period in the middle of your career where the job hopping's okay, as long as you're showing career progression. So you can't just be going from mid-level dev to mid-level dev to mid-level dev to senior dev to senior dev to senior dev. It's got to be, no, I've done junior to mid, there might be another mid in there, but a different tech stack, then up to senior, then onto tech lead, and make it that they're actually good steps up. Or an obvious step back as well is okay. I've done that, and I get asked about it almost every time I interview. Someone's like, so why did you change back to that role? And it's like, I explain it in the terms of I went to a larger company. There was more chance for promotion. I basically reached the peak I could in the previous company. And I explained that it was a deliberate choice to take a step backwards in that case. But then as you get sort of more into the senior leadership roles, people want longevity for those roles. And part of that is how quickly people manage to deliver value. When you're a developer, you're an individual contributor, you're delivering value potentially multiple times a day, depending on the release cycle, at least a couple of times a sprint, there's value getting delivered. As you move further up into leadership, your value horizon extends, and the choices you make may not have any impact for 6 or 12 months. So people want to see that longer term there, partly because it shows that you're not delivering poor value. You're actually making good changes, and you can hang around for long enough to see them through.
Sandra saying, depends on how fulfilled I am in the role. My aim is to stay 5-6 years, which I have done. But past few years, I have changed every 18 months as the role haven't been right for me. Yeah. Keith is saying, I'm 45 and I haven't found job satisfaction yet. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess here we go. We can see the trend. Like if we're not satisfied with the job, we leave it in general 18 months. So it's about the right,
Yeah, and I think it's right interesting. There's a period in the first few months in the job, generally the probation period, where if you recognize that the job's not right for you, get out there, find a new one, move on. It's okay to have that shorter period. If someone asks about it, then explain to them, it wasn't the right role for me. I was still on probation. I worked out there was no future here, so I left. Make sure that you don't do it 5 or 6 times in a row, because then people go, yeah, you're not good at identifying what you want to do. What if we're the next wrong one? But if there's one, if they're scattered throughout your career, that's okay. In terms of the job satisfaction comment, I think that's really hard. It's part of it's sitting down and working out or standing up, or whatever the best way is, work out what your passion is, and then find a way to do that through work. I had a massive challenge when I made the decision to move into leadership. I'd recently come out of a relationship that had just failed. I'd moved house. I started becoming more active at meetups to try and improve my social life, and I'd suddenly started learning a lot more. And I found I just wasn't feeling fulfilled at work. And so in my case, I also took up walking. And rather than having the music on and just walking and enjoying life, I used that time to think. And I'd walk for 4 or 6 or 8 hours on every weekend and kept thinking about what do I want to do. And after a few months, and yes, it's a few months of a lot of long weekends of walking, I was walking along one day and I suddenly went, I've got no thoughts left. I'd overthought, I'm the worst overthinker, and I'd overthought everything to the point that I didn't have anything left to think about. So I pulled out my headphones and started listening to some music and walked home. And it was at that point that I realized I've just cleared up where I want to go in life, how I'm going to get there, all of what my next step will be, and a whole lot of decisions. And so I think it was the week after that, I went up to my manager and I said, I'm going to start looking for another role. And he's like, wait, what? And I'm like, I'm just letting you know that my next step up is basically to take your job, and you're not showing any signs of leaving. So I think I have to leave. And yeah, through that, I then found another role and away I went.
Yeah, and I think, what's I think quite important about your story, that sometimes people think that it's, you do a few exercises about, I don't know, passion, or, finding your passion, finding your goals, and off you go. But in reality, when you're setting these long-term goals, it takes time. Yeah. And I think quite a few of us are guilty about it. When we just want to make a decision, we just like, no, we need to change to something. We need to do something. We need to, take a next step, where sometimes we need to take time and really think about this next step, instead of just, taking any step just for the sake of moving somewhere.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day, and they're not overly happy in their job, and they're trying to work out what to do next. And they're like, I should just quit and go and find another job. I'm like, No, if your job's not, you're not passionate about your job, when you leave the office, you forget about it. It's gone for the night. It's not stressful enough to be bringing it home, then keep doing it, because it means that every night you've got that time to think. Now, depending on your family situation, if you've got kids, after they've gone to bed. And if you've got a partner there, make sure they're aware of the fact that you need time to think, or perhaps time to discuss it with them and work out where that passion lies. Maybe you'll find that passion lies in accepting some job overseas and the whole family will end up moving. Who knows? Until you've really thought it out, you don't know where it's going to go. And it does take a lot of time and effort and energy. And I can't think of everything else that I put into it in order to work out what I wanted. But I guess
100%.
one of the key...
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the key realizations I had as I sort of finished going through that, and I've started experiencing this more and more as my career is going down toward the goal that I want, is the passion is worth way more than money. If you're passionate about it, the money's probably going to come. That's a nice bonus. But if I was still on the same wage I was on 5 years ago, but I was enjoying my work as much as I do these days, I'd be a lot happier than I was, because I found where that passion is.
100%. And I guess we also need to know ourselves and know our personality. Like, some people are better in making decisions and setting the goals under more pressure, some people not. So, like, if you're a person who don't work good at under pressure, I definitely wouldn't recommend quitting the job just because you're not happy and under pressure looking for another job, because that's probably wouldn't be the right one. And it's better, as you said, like, come home and think about it while you still have a job.
And if people are wanting a bit of pressure in order to help them set the goal, then I need your goals emailed to me by close of business tomorrow. Thanks. For everyone else, sometime in the next 6, 8, 12, 18 months would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, no, 100%. I guess, like, everyone needs a different level of stimulation, but making sure that understanding and accepting that it takes time. The setting goals can take time, and understanding how you can get this job satisfaction might take you quite a few years.
Yeah, and also I think, at least for me, a big part of it was working out that setting the goal and what I was passionate about wasn't necessarily going to align with the skills that I had, and in some ways didn't align with some parts of my personality. I'm a massive introvert, and it surprises a lot of people when I say that, because I'm happily here presenting, talking to the screen and talking to you. I'm happy to get up and do public speaking. I'm happy to deal with people all day, every day at work and be quite vocal. Doesn't mean I don't crash and burn in the evenings and just enjoy recuperating, but it's, for someone who's an introvert, and I've made the choice of, I actively want to get into people leadership. It doesn't fit for most people, but hey, it's what fits for me. So so don't base it on what other people say either.
And I guess that's one thing that we hasn't mentioned yet. The one important step in thinking about and driving your career is networking. Actually talking with other people in industry and understanding industry more, and also looking for some mentors. So what's your suggestions on it?
I guess it's important not to just network with one type of people. So when I started thinking about networking for myself, I started going, right, do I need a mentor? And I started realizing that there's probably no single mentor that I need. I need a group of them. So I found meetups where I've then developed relationships with people who I think are much more knowledgeable about the bits that I want. I've also taken on some mentees, and they've helped to remind me of how much knowledge I've gained throughout my career. I've gone through coaching sessions. I've found subject matter experts. I've talked to students. I've talked to workers in the industry, people that do the role that I want. And the one thing I've found is the only way to interact with these people while networking is to give them value. How that value is given could be any number of ways. It could be, in the case of, if you've got a mentor, asking them questions and sharing feedback on what happened when you enacted some of the stuff that they talked about. For students, it can be helping them with learning something, and in return they start telling you what else they're learning, and so you gain a lot of value. And one of the notes I prepared for this was, if you offer value to them, value will be given to you as if by magic. So don't look at what you can get from someone else, look at what you can give, and you'll suddenly realize that gets paid back. And I think that's probably the key bit for networking.
And I'm glad you mentioned about having mentees as well, because it's often so interesting to see when you're actually trying to teach someone how much you know, and when you like putting your thoughts, and it's helped you actually to structure your knowledge as well. When you are trying to pass the knowledge to someone and give you a bit more confidence as well. And I guess also if you're mentees from a different generation, you learn a different perspective on the same role as well.
Yeah, I've always found when I'm talking to any of the mentees that I've got, I get more value from them than I feel like I'm giving them. And I know a lot of people really don't like asking, oh, can you mentor me on this, or can you coach me on this, or can you help me with this? But every time someone does, I leave going, I got so much value from that. And it's really important to recognize that value is a two-way street. So if you find someone that you want them to be your mentor or your coach, or you think that they can help advise you, just ask them, because if they've done it before, they'll jump at the chance. And if they haven't, they'll feel really rewarded when they have. So you're giving them value as well.
Tarzan is saying, great tips for networking, Michael.
I'm sure Tarzan's just glad that I'm not talking about blue cables with plugs on the end.
I don't know anything about blue cables.
the old cabled computer networks.
Actually, I have one here.
Yeah.
This cable.
Yeah, there we go. The dreaded blue cable.
I do have a blue cable. Perfect. So yeah, no, definitely. I think it's a great advice about value exchange, and I'm glad also you have on your slide here that it's never too early. And I think it's really important to understand, even if you just start studying something, you may be only like 3 years away from the job search. It's never too early. Like, start talking with the people in the industry, start building these connections, and you never know, in 3 years time they might open the new company, or I don't know, they have a position up, and they're like, oh, remember that student, he had a few good questions. They just like you, they just build trust over the years. And surprisingly, we often hire people that we like, especially if it's entry-level roles.
Oh, definitely. And I think the other thing is that when people are networking, it's important to be putting value back out to the rest of the world. So whether your chosen media is TikTok or YouTube or LinkedIn articles or a blog or whatever it happens to be, as you learn something new, especially even before you're in the industry that you want to end up in, start telling other people about what you've learned, because they'll be able to learn it from you as well. So that can be a really good strategy to help increase the network of peers or of those that are going to end up more junior to you in the future. Yep,
100%. And Michael, we already passed the 40 minutes. I know we can talk forever.
Oh, definitely.
But we're slowly trying to wrap the things up. Guys, please, any questions? If you have any questions to Michael, or if you also still want to maybe share with us what strategy have you used to progress in your career, please leave the comment now while we, wrapping up. And I just want to touch up on the last point that you have here, Michael, before we finish our live stream. The point of the ownership.
Yeah, I think taking ownership of your own career is really important. I mean, I can give people as much advice as I possibly can. Jana, you can give people as much as every ounce of knowledge you've got. But it doesn't matter how much advice we give, we can't do it for someone else. They have to do it for themselves. So listen to the advice people give, take it on board, understand it, work out if it's actually going to apply to you as well. If someone gives you some advice and you choose to enact it and it's bad advice, it's not their fault, it's your fault. But at the same time, if it's good advice and you choose to apply it, you should be rewarded for your decision to take it. So yeah, very much. You have to take ownership of your career. No one's going to hand you your next promotion on a platter. No one's going to come and offer you a job. Well, they might one day, but it's going to take quite a few years of getting your name out there in the industry and networking before that's going to happen. And so, yeah, you've really got to push yourself forward, and yeah, not let anyone detract from the direction you want, but also make sure that people who are giving you help are going to help in the right direction.
100%. And I think it's so common then, people do, I don't know, get a bit upset in a way, but maybe that they didn't get offered promotion or they haven't been picked for promotion. But sometimes it's actually not because they're lacking critical skills. It's only because they never voiced that they want this promotion. And it happens all the time, because sometimes the manager might think that this person is happy in this position too.
Yeah.
And they don't even think about
yeah, and it's very much, I was talking the other day, and I said, talking about a career change with someone, and I said to them, oh, have you thought about going into this industry? And it literally just happened in my head that I had this random idea, and I'm like, I'm taking no responsibility or ownership for whether this is a good idea or not. That's up to you. But the thought popped into my head, and from what I can see, it seems to have aligned really well. So yeah, if they've chosen to apply that, then they get 100% of the credit. I just happened to find a seed on the ground and said, oh, here you go. Do you want to plant this?
And it's also actually happened with me and you, where you pointed me in the direction of, recently pointed me in direction IT recruitment. And it's all actually aligned in my my head when I start thinking about it. So sometimes you do need this external opinion to help you, because yeah, sometimes we do get like just boiling on our thoughts and just going in a circle where some gathering some different opinions can help us to decide the next step. We just as you said before, it's not about gathering just one opinion, it's just gathering a few opinions and rating them and thinking like, is it actually making any sense?
And I think that ties together a lot of the slides that we've shown tonight, where you looked at changing your direction, you planned out what you wanted to do. There's a complete change in the momentum of where you're going. You've taken ownership of it all, but you achieved a lot of that by networking. So I think that's pretty much every slide we've had there, and yeah, hopefully it becomes your next passion.
Yeah, we'll see. And Sandra is saying, I create my personal brand. I think this is a good career strategy, especially in the digital age. 100%, Sandra. Yeah, at the moment, networking, personal brand, networking online definitely helps you to progress in your career. I think it's definitely, especially now with COVID, definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I think in some ways, I think we've actively avoided talking too much about branding tonight. I believe you've talked to Jonathan Maltby before about branding. There's plenty of resources out there. Jana's got a lot of information about it, but I think, yeah, there's more than enough to go on with there, but it is a very important bit. It's something I've paid a lot of attention to, and it can really help with aligning, like as long as it's aligned with your career direction and your goals, and it helps you along that path, it can help enable all the things that we've talked about tonight. So yeah, I think it's a very important bit.
And I think that's the best comment to finish up tonight. I could resist looking at your cat as well, Michael. That was a highlight of this video. Your cat on the background. We all like these live streams because because of the beautiful pets.
Yeah.
No, Roger is not here at the moment, so I can't introduce Roger to, to your cat at the moment.
That's all right. I'm
Maybe
sure
next
Pearl would
time.
just look at. I'm sure Pearl would look at Roger and just go, "What's that? I'm scared," and run away.
Yeah, most likely. I think think a lot of pets would be actually scared of rats. Okay, so thank you so much, Michael, for your time. We're already on the 50 minutes through our stream. So as we mentioned in the beginning, we do have a little surprise for our active listeners. And Michael actually going to give away today a 1 hour career strategy session with him. I have a magical link somewhere. I'll find it in a second. So obviously, Michael, I think we know who is the most active participant today. I think we have a winner.
Yes, I think that one's nice and obvious.
I think we have an obvious winner for the giveaway today. Sandra, I'm gonna send you a link where you can book your strategy with Michael and have the chat about the career planning and all the things that we discuss in tonight's live stream. And also, Michael is gonna post the article on this topic and his website. If you haven't checked Michael's website, it's on just on the screen now. alphageek.com.au. So, Michael, where are you going to post the article?
So I think it'll be in the meetups and conferences section that I've got on the site.
Yep. And when are you planning to post it?
Should be there within the next hour or so. So I pre-wrote most of it, but that's okay because I knew where we were heading. And advance notice, you'll need a while to read it. It's a 4,000 word essay. So
pretty much transcript of this video, yeah?
Yeah, or maybe even more in depth for some bits.
More, yeah. So guys, for those who don't want to watch a replay, just go to the website and Michael gonna post the article on this topic shortly. And also, Sandra is saying thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, for all of your comments and inputs. It's been great to have some interaction.
And the cat is back. And so just finish up, guys. I just want to remind you that I'm actually going live every second Wednesday. So Wednesday, the 26th of May, we're going to talk with Gabo, and we're going to talk about how to build your IT career after moving to Australia. So as I mentioned to some of you that I'm actually going to move my career to IT recruitment, and it feels like my live stream is a bit shifting towards that topic too. So in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about specifically career in IT for those who just moved to Australia. But I'm sure if you recently moved to Australia and maybe you're looking at career not in IT, but in general, I'm sure Gabo will have a good tips for you anyway. So make sure tune in 2 weeks on the 26th of May at 5:30 p.m. Sandra is saying thank you again. And she got a lot of value from tonight. Thank you so much, Michael. I'm going to put you on the spot. So last thing that I would like you to say, just give me your, favorite inspiration quote.
Probably a bit of a mantra that I live by in my life, and that's accept what you can't change and then change what you can't accept.
That's a good one. It's similar to, you can't avoid unavoidable and achieve non-achievable or something like that. Unachievable. I just made up an English word as I do. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Accept what you can change and change what you
can't
accept.
Yep.
And that's a perfect finish for our today live stream. Thank you so much, Michael, again. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.